Sure, sure. Okay, we're going to call this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order. If we could please note, Vice President Lorraine Price is excused, I believe, tonight. She's not feeling well. And Secretary Garcia says he will be joining us a bit late. If we could now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the New Mexico flag in English and in Spanish, followed by the acknowledgement of tribal land. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Saludo la bandera del Estado de Nuevo México, el símbolo Zia de amistad perfecta entre culturas unidas. We acknowledge the original people of the land, the Tesuque Pueblo people, and other tribal nations, and ask them to walk with us today as we share and learn together. Thank you very much. We are now on to item 1D, approval of the agenda.
Recommend we approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. On to the introduction of the interpreter, Mr. Martinez.
Buenas noches, Presidente Noble, miembros de la Junta Escolar y Superintendente, Doctora García, miembros de la comunidad. Mi nombre es Germán Martínez y serviré como traductor. Si alguien ocupa esos servicios, por favor, levante la mano. Good afternoon, President Noble, board members, Superintendent Dr. Garcia. My name is Germán Martinez, and I'll provide translation services. If anybody would like those services, please raise your hand, and I'll provide those in the back of the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And moving on to the school board showcase. We will start tonight with the Nina Otero Community School Mustang Singers. They're under the direction of Brianna Hooper and performing Merry Christmas Round, as well as, I think, When I Hear the Sounds of Christmas and Peace, Peace. Is that right? 3 songs? All right, welcome.
one thing about these kids. This is about just about half of our group. So I've been so proud of them this year. I've been working with these guys, most of them, since they were in 6th grade, and now they're in 8th grade. So I wish you could hear then and now. They are amazing and wonderful and the joy of my heart. And they're really embarrassed right now. And I get to take them traveling so many places, and we've been learning so much together. And then we are going to have a chance to go sing for some judges in Southern California this upcoming year. I took a group last year for the first time, and we placed silver, and I can't wait to see what these guys are going to be able to get at that competition. And this is a competition where it's some of the best choirs, middle school choirs and high school choirs. They're mostly competing against high school choirs, so it's... We do really well, and they for sure can hold their own, and I'm just so proud of them. So thank you guys for doing so awesome, and I'm going to take them home now. I don't want to hear it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hooper. Okay, continuing with the school board showcase, we have Wood Gormley Elementary School and virtual reality field trips. Barbara Clark is the digital learning coach. Marcy Loy is a first grade teacher. And I believe the students we have here are Jade Clack, Joaquin Moody, Mose Ekman, Emma Deal, all in first grade. Is that right? Or there's just two of you?
We ended up with Mose and Jade.
Mose and Jade, well, welcome. And Ms. Clack, I believe you're going to describe for us how the virtual reality glasses provide opportunities for students to expand their knowledge of content in an immersive format, and then the students will demonstrate.
The students are going to demonstrate, and Google Expedition.
If you'd use the microphone at the podium, please, so that all of the thousands of people watching can hear you too.
Google Expeditions is a program that we love to use at Wood Gormley because it allows us to go to take trips to places that you wouldn't be able to go without this technology. We're going to take a trip to Mars, and the students are going to show you kind of what it looks like, and then we're going to invite the board to come down and see what they're seeing. That's all. So yeah, let me have it. So the teacher guides the trip with an iPad, and the teacher has full control of where the students are looking. So the teacher would take their iPad, and they would say, follow the arrow, and then there's step-by-step instructions here that guides the teacher what they will be seeing. So follow the arrow, and we'll look at the rover deck. Okay, so the students are seeing what I'm seeing on the iPad only in 3D and surrounding. Okay, so now the participatory part of if the board will come down and look and see what the students are seeing and ask our experts questions. And so what do you see? Jay, let them see. And Mose, if you'll hand that off to the board. Jay. So just look in there, and you can see what the students are seeing now. And so now you can see what the students were seeing. And if like I said, follow the arrow. And and this tells about the rover deck, how dust covers everything on Mars, even the Curiosity rover. This is the Curiosity rover. So, and then there's several scenes, like this scene that we're taking out to Sojourner rover. This is a solar-powered rover that's on Mars. Mose, you want to let?
No, I have it.
You sure?
Yep.
Because he's done it.
He's having a time.
Okay.
This is so super cool.
It's powered by the viewers or just viewers, and we have phones that are inside of them that connects to the iPad. Does anyone have any questions for Jade or Mose?
other than this.
Oh, and where was that other place?
The other place was the moon.
Oh, that's pretty neat. Are you guys going to become astronauts?
I don't want to.
Do you want to tell you why you like what do you like about the Google expeditions? What's your favorite thing? How did it help you learn? You got me. I know. Yes, no, yes, please come down, yeah.
Well, so you could like go to Washington D.C. and to Lincoln's Memorial, and you
Well,
could go.
We've
to
also been,
Yellowstone.
at Wood Gormley, we've been to the coral reefs. We visit the coral reef. We visited ancient, the pyramids. We've been to the Great Wall of China.
Are you able to make it really current? Like if something's happening on the planet today, and I'm thinking of the New Zealand volcano, a way to be able to like be right there. Through
Well, you know, they're not videos, they're stills, but we can look at volcanoes. There's a trip to volcanoes, so we can tie that in to, yes, just about anything, because there's like over 600 trips that, you know, that are, yeah. Currently, Felicia, where are you? Felicia and I have just gone through all the old phones that technology people and principals have turned in when they've got updated phones, and we've swiped them, and now we have how many, Felicia? So, but at Wood Gormley, the way I've been doing it is I had 4. So I would go in, and Terry, you can tell us because I've been in your class, and I would do 4, and she would do something else with the class, and I'd take them back in her closet and do a trip for at a time. But we would love that. They have to be smartphones in that they have to be able to. Like if you turn it, the phone has to be able to turn and do landscape, and they have to be able to connect not to Wi-Fi but to our router that which is, yeah. The goggles themselves are only about $15 a piece. There are actually even better things that Google companies make better that have the goggles and the devices already in them, so you don't have to worry about the phones falling out. Yeah, well, I think you broke it. But yeah, but you can buy classroom sets of those that come with everything you need. So, thank you.
Thanks you guys for coming out. 'Cause I know it's hard to
Yes, it is. Yeah, tied into their content. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mose, and thank you, Jade, and thank you, Ms. Clack, and thank you, Felicia. Okay, we are moving on, and we are at public forum. Dr. Ryan.
President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, we have 5 people that have signed up for public forum tonight. If those people will line up over here on the right, and I will, which is Anjanette Torres, Camille Anion, Scott Ricardo, Cynthia Pacheco, Cliff Reis, and I'll go through the forum ground rules. Please listen and speak with respect. No uncivil conduct will be permitted. Please do not discuss specific students who are not your own. There's no sharing of time. Self-monitor and observe the 3-minute time limit, and I will give you a 30-second warning when your time is almost up. Public commentary and dialogue is allowed only during the public forum and not throughout the meeting. We hope that you search for answers on common ground. You may speak on any topic, whether it's on our agenda tonight or not. Your input will be taken into consideration. And please be advised that the board may not discuss your issue during the meeting, or may discuss your issue during the meeting, but by law they cannot take action on items that are not already published on our agenda. So that I'd ask each of the speakers to please repeat your name to the board so that we can have it in the record. And we start with Anjanette.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. And is there anyone, I just want to ask, is there anyone who wanted to speak at public forum but didn't get a chance to sign up? Now's your chance. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And I just want to start out by thanking you, President Noble, for attending the Milagro Arts and Crafts Bazaar on Saturday. We really appreciate your support. That was a great event to benefit our art classes at Milagro. My name is Anjanette Torres. I'm the president of the parent-teacher organization at Milagro Middle School. I am here today with another parent, Camilla Anion, who is our treasurer for the PTO. Last week, we sent Superintendent Garcia and President Noble a letter from the PTO outlining some requests that we have about security at our middle school. Unfortunately, we had a very traumatic and scary incident right before the Thanksgiving break where our school went into lockdown and had police presence. And so in response to that, we've written a letter, and I'm not going to read the letter because you all have a copy, but I do have copies available if you're not familiar with it. We would like increased security at Milagro Middle School with additional security officers on site to remain through the end of the 2019-2020 school year. And we recognize that there is discussion about increased security at our middle school, and we thank you for that. We would also like to create a multidisciplinary team comprised of law enforcement, homeland security, risk management, security professionals, juvenile justice services, school staff, administrators, parents, and community members to conduct a comprehensive risk threat assessment of Milagro Middle School, which will generate recommendations for an improvement plan. We'd like to see those recommendations addressed throughout the school year and carried into the following school year. And we'd also like to see a communication strategy to provide immediate and honest communication with all parents, teachers, administrators, staff, and PTO members if possible. We appreciate how much the district did during that unfortunate incident and the communication that went out, but there were still some parents who did not receive robocalls. Some parents received calls 2 to 3 hours after the event, and we're getting media reports about it. So there's always opportunities for improvement. And I would just like to close with something that if any of you are familiar with the Pareto principle that basically states for many events, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. Well, at Milagro, we have Principal Brenda Courting, who has the principal courting principle. She did an analysis that 4% of the students at Milagro are causing about 96% of the problems. And if you can imagine the tremendous resources, energy, and time that's being spent on those 4%, it takes away from the 96% of students who really need all of those to succeed and learn and be safe in our schools. And so if we could just collaborate, we're here today to thank you for hearing us, for being part of this. I know we've talked about having representatives from the district come to our PTO meetings. We have a strong PTO. We want to work together. We want to offer our support. We want to make Milagro the great middle school that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Camilla Anion, and I appreciate your time. I'm just here in support of Anjanette, and I would like to, just say that, having those resources from the school district will really make a big difference in the school. My family, my daughter loves the school. She loves the teachers that are there. They're very supportive. She's learned a lot. She's had a lot of opportunity there. I think if we have, just this partnership with the school district in order to provide the school with the resources that they need to, work with these families that need some support, as well as, the district supporting the teachers in all of their different needs with, training, opportunities for mentoring with other teachers that have experience with, some of these kids that are, having issues. So, I think if we could have that support from the district, I think it would make a big difference to not only the kids in the school, but the teachers They're wonderful teachers. You know, Miss Cording is wonderful. Her staff is wonderful. I think we just have an opportunity to make some differences and in some improvements with the school in itself and make some changes for the kids. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is here Scott?
Hi, I'm Scott Ricardo. I'm honored to be here with all you people who are dedicated to helping children. I timed my speech for 5 minutes, so I'm going to pick it up. I'll cut to the chase. I run a company called Summer Institutes that trains teachers. Been doing it for 33 years. I used to be an ex-college football coach, head wrestling coach, and AD, but my biggest accomplishment is helping teachers. And I took the 3 R's of education that we use as coaching, and they must be in order: relationships, relevancy, and then rigor. And I try to get that into teachers' minds. We specialize in reducing teacher burnout and increasing teacher performance with the hard-to-manage kids. I want to share with you our 5-star presenter, Rick Miller, who worked for 2 presidents, of what he taught me, and this is a gift to all of you. It's a gift and a request. Never again after tonight, I hope you ever call a student at risk. It is degrading. It is negative. It was back in the late 80s and early 90s, and I was a part of it, where some educator came up with the buzzword "at risk." We're not at risk. We're at hope. President Noble, would you want to be called at risk by your peers or by your employees? Because at risk means you're risky. There's not a good chance you're going to succeed. Would you like to be labeled that way? I don't think so. Your children, do you want your children to be labeled at risk? I don't think so. So they call at risk if your dad was in prison, or if your parents drink, or if you're Native American, you're at risk, or if you're poor, you're at risk. You're not. And we're degrading them. We read it all the time. We read it in all the papers that are sent to me by everything. Let's start calling them at hope. And let me prove it to you. And I'm going to get this one done. Rick Miller introduced me to he told me about a young man. And this young man was born in prison, a mother of 17, unmarried, and 2 months before he was born, his father was shot in the face with a shotgun. I ask you this question. Do you feel that young man is at risk or at hope? It gets worse. Foster care, because he can't live in the prison. From birth to 14, he was in foster care. He was physically, emotionally, and sexually abused for 14 years. And then he went into a boarding school or whatever, emancipated at 18, homeless and penniless. Was he at risk or at hope? Fast forward. I met a man named Antoine Fisher 2 years ago. He's a best-selling author, world-renowned poet, screenwriter, great husband, great father, loves to garden, to give back to the community. It's the same man, Antoine Fisher. They made a movie about him. Denzel Washington played the counselor. Why is it? Last thing, he had a counselor that gave him hope, didn't call him at risk. I hope you guys carry it on, because you guys are influential, powerful people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cynthia?
Welcome.
President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, my name is Cynthia Pacheco, and I have a son who attends Santa Fe High School. I'm here tonight to talk to our outgoing board members. Maya Angelou once said that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Member Cashman, I want you to know that from the days of band at Capshaw through the JROTC years at Santa Fe High School, you've always made us feel listened to. I'm incredibly grateful for your patience. Whether I was scared, angry, or grateful, my concern was always your concern. Your leadership and your dedication to the kids has mattered to me. Even when we were not on the same side of the issue, you still always made us feel like our concerns mattered. I've had the pleasure of serving with some outstanding Lightbirds, and you, ma'am, are among the best. Thank you very much. Member Carrillo, I've never been so inspired as the day about 4 years ago when you stood alongside the students who were protesting park at the Roundhouse. It was cold that day and it was snowing. You stood there and you talked to them. The kids were frustrated and you encouraged them and you reminded them that it wasn't enough to be against something, that they had to have the courage to be for something. That was sage advice, and it's something that I will always remember and be grateful to you for. I think that might be the last time we ever agreed on anything, because fast forward to April in this room a couple years ago, I've never been so angry and frustrated. I want you to know that I am grateful for the fact that you were always honest, that you were willing to disagree. I wish that you had tried harder to mitigate some of the collateral damage, but I want you to know that despite that, I do believe that everything that you did because you believed it was in the best interest of the community that you serve. I want to thank you both very much for your dedicated service to this community. And because we have the limit, I can't tell everyone else what I think of them, but trust me, I'll be back. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Good evening. Get that right at distance here. President Noble, board members, Dr. Garcia, staff, members of the audience. My name is Clifford Reis. I wear many hats since I retired from state government in 2005. One of them is as a member of the Citizen Review Committee, appointed by Board Member Cashman in March of 2015. I'm here tonight wearing the hat of a proud parent of 2 students who have attended ATC, and I'm here in support of the charter renewal of ATC. My older daughter, Alice, is now graduated in 2017. She's a junior at my alma mater, George Washington University in Washington, D.C., but she decided to major in Japanese language and literature, and she's spending her junior year at Waseda University in Tokyo. And I know I'm biased, but I proudly point her out as an example of the outstanding students that graduate from the district. I think she's one of them, one we can all be proud of. Our younger daughter is a 10th grader at ATC, and both have been model students and have done great work in the community. And I really want to thank the support from the CRC and from the board for its support of making ATC even better than it was when my daughter started attending. The taxpayers generously supported the general obligation bond in 2017, and $6.5 million has gone to an addition to the school to really complete the physical plan. For the most part, a new gym, cafeteria, science rooms, music room, really feels like a real school now. And I want to thank Principal Lumley and the great faculty and staff at ATC who worked incredibly hard, in the governing council, worked incredibly hard to make ATC one of the top high schools in the state. So I'm really here to say thanks. I appreciate the support. Delighted that the charter was renewed. I'm not surprised, but I'm delighted, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to thank all of you for each of you making a contribution to a really outstanding school that our district is proud of, and I certainly am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, that concludes our public forum participants.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ryan. Moving on, we have the union update. Grace Mayer is here. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Grace Mayer, NEA Santa Fe president and art teacher at Milagro Middle School. And I'm just going to take a moment to talk to you about the magnificent artwork from our students at Milagro Middle School. If you can turn your head, there's some etchings and some color work and about color theory. There's some work, photographs that the students took. A lot of portraiture and other things, and a shout out to my colleagues, both Megan Avina and Joselle Batista, for the wonderful work that they displayed today. Also, our students won, I think, 3rd place in with Miss Avina's class in the Recycled Art Show. Well, once again, I'm in a difficult position, having to talk to the board about some challenging issues that our employees are facing. And I'm trying very hard to bring up what's essential, but not dwell on the fact that I believe that this decision was made. I think it was made in the interest of students. However, our employees want to feel successful in the positions and the jobs that they're placed in. And I feel like at this point, mid-year, moving or involuntarily transferring any employee of the district to another position where they're not an expert in that field is going to be challenging and very difficult for them. So we need to come together and provide support. And I really believe that they need to be the people that guide the level of support that they need. And they should be able to ask for help. And if it's not working, I think we should maybe reconsider some of the involuntary transfers that are being discussed and move forward on tomorrow. And we will be there to make sure that the contract is upheld. There is a provision that allows for involuntary transfers. This is not anything we've really done before, where we move people in specific jobs to completely different ones with maybe not the same type of licensure or some other things that I believe are kind of essential to them being successful there. But there were volunteers that did step up, and hopefully that placement will work out for them. I'm a little more concerned about the ones that are being involuntarily transferred. I think every job that we have is essential to student development and developing our teachers and our faculty, so that they are performing well in the classroom. There's a real partnership between some of the positions that are being moved into the classroom, back into the classroom, and teachers and their students currently. So, and also coordinators that are running whole departments. I understand that we have a shortage in math and science and special ed teachers. However, creating kind of this other condition where we're moving people around, I don't know if it's going to make more problems or solve the ones we have, and then we have a shortage in the expertise in the areas that coordinate whole programs or directors that coordinate programs. So we've had multiple discussions with the district, and it looks like we're moving forward with this. However, I do want to just emphasize that our employees want to be successful at their jobs. And if they move into a placement that they're not successful, I don't want them to feel humiliated by that experience. So I'm asking you to help, and the superintendent to help figure out how to mitigate any of that if it does come up. We want people to come to our district and to thrive as employees. We want our kids to thrive, obviously. We have a shortage nationally of teachers. We have a retiring workforce in Santa Fe. Some of that has to do with pay. So obviously, we're interested in the legislature giving us more than a 4% raise and hoping for a 10%, or moving those base salaries to 45, 55, and 65,000 so that we can attract some more people. But we're in a difficult situation. Our city is expensive to live in. And even at 65,000 or 55,000, we're just paying bills. And so I think we need to start to partner with the city and try to ask them to figure out our housing situation. I know that there has been new units that are being built, but not exactly sure if even those costs are within range of a new employee for this district. So, again, I'm in this difficult position, but I hope that our employees can be honest with their situation and move forward with this, and hopefully we can all assist them in being successful in their new placement. That is it.
Thank you very much. Okay. We're at student board announcements and follow-up. You ready, Ms. Torres?
I am. So to start off, I want to say that Capitol had its 2019 Winter Showcase that went on December 5th, 6th, and 7th. We also are looking for students to join our upcoming swim team. And Capitol is also trying to send juniors and seniors to Germany for a youth exchange program, which is awesome. And students are now starting their Starling Silver application. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you. So
I have a question, even though I know the answer, but I'm sure the public doesn't. Ms. Noble, is there for you? What is Sterling Silvers?
Okay, so Starling Silver is okay. So the teachers at Capitol nominate certain students that they believe are just really well-rounded students and that represent Capitol very well, and they apply for it's a medal. It's a medal that we graduate that just kind of just shows how dedicated we are to helping Capitol.
But it's a grade point average and attendance. All these things go into it, right?
Oh yeah. So I believe that it's a 3.5 and above, and you do have to have very good attendance. And then even after you get the Starling Silver, if you get it, you do have to keep up with your attendance and go get signatures from your teacher every so often just to make sure you're still qualified. So you don't just get it and then you get it, you still have to earn it.
And extracurriculars are part of the program, aren't they?
Oh yeah, so we have to fill out a whole list of extracurriculars that we did from our freshman, sophomore, junior, and now senior year.
And Harvey, isn't there equivalent at Santa Fe High School? Because these are amazing, amazing programs. These kids are inspiring when you go to each of these ceremonies. Truly, where they've come from and what they're doing. What's the equivalent at Santa Fe High School?
So Santa Fe High is Royal Blues. And it's a very similar process, basically check all the same boxes, and that application is also started up around this time of year.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. As far as Santa Fe High announcements go, our biology teacher, Richard Pittman, was just nominated for and received the Golden Apple Award. Our boys basketball team won the Capital City Tournament this past weekend. Our NJROTC team competed in Colorado Springs this past weekend as well, so a lot of competitions. And then under the guidance of our teacher of AP Computer Science, Brian Smith, the following students won the state championship for the New Mexico Governor's STEM Challenge, and those are Faith Miller, Bella Root, Olivia Nguyen, and Madeline Johnson. However, as attendance was brought up recently, and as we are also approaching the holidays, there have been complaints from Santa Fe High students and other students across the public schools district about the handling of absences primarily for religious holidays. I'm thinking primarily with regards to my own situation, but also with regards to fellow students who are non-denominational or do not celebrate traditional holidays for which coincide with winter break. This year, Hanukkah falls on Christmas, but I mean, it was on the middle of November last year. So those absences, even though they are not recognized for issues such as truancy, are still recognized for the Sterling Silver and Royal Blues Awards. And it is for reasons such as those that I believe the board needs to address how those are handled.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. Yes, Board Member Carrillo.
So on that, and I remember bringing this up years ago, and it was as a result of some kids at one of the elementary schools that I represented that for the purposes of attendance awards at this particular elementary school, kids that were out for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, even though they're, it's an excused absence, it counted against their perfect attendance. Same thing happens when with the Chamber of Commerce, the thing that they do. So it's been a long time since this has been on the table, and I want to make sure that, I'm going to be, gone in 3 weeks, but this has to be addressed. Native American students that have different festivals and different celebrations that fall at all different times of the year, none of this should count against regular attendance for the purposes of awards, either by school, class, or the chamber, or anything for that matter. So if we could, continue as a district to be progressive in this way, and then also, again, as we always do, to lead the state in coming up with great solutions on this. And I would thank Mr. McGinnis for bringing this up. It also goes to staff. I'm sorry, because staff having to take paid leave when they have to take off on those days. Yom Kippur is typically 2 days, Rosh is 1. But it's not right because there's a holiday for Good Friday. There's a holiday for different things. And but for people of different faiths, you have to take paid leave in order to observe. Thanks.
Board Member Cashman. And I know we don't normally discuss this here, but since we have our school board members, and so I don't want them to leave early in case we don't have the discussion. But one of the things on attendance that was brought up to me, and a good point, is even if we excuse the attendance, especially at the high school and probably at the middle school, our students are still expected to do the work that they're missing. And it was brought up to me, I know we do that athletics. Playing athletics is a choice. Following your religion is maybe not what we would consider a choice. So I think the next board needs to look a little bit more fully at that policy, because they shouldn't have that dichotomy. Do I go to my religious services but then I'm missing class and I still have to get that work? So maybe the next board could take a look at that, because I have, and I mentioned to one of our board members, I have an issue with something that's happened at UNM that's a very serious issue that has affected one of our Santa Fe High School graduates, and could be a major lawsuit for UNM. So we need to get this right on religious holidays, because even though we do not call it Good Friday, we do give that day off. And so we need to just look at the entirety of it. Dr. Garcia.
Madam President, members of the board, the Superintendent's Equity and Diversity Council, there is a committee, and I'm trying to look who's here that goes to those meetings, but I don't see anybody. Oh, there you are. There is a committee, right? A subgroup that is working on that, all of those issues combined. So we will be bringing probably a policy recommendation to the board. We did make progress, I believe, over the last couple of years of ensuring that there's a code, at least for the attendance, if you're, going to say a fiesta, a festival, not a festival, but a feast day is what I wanted to say, for, say, one of the pueblos that's marked, or a Rosh Hashanah or whatever, that they are excused. But what it hasn't translated is whether for awards, if that is being followed. Now, the chamber obviously is an independent unit, but they get the attendance from us. So I would think that we can hopefully get this addressed before award season this spring. And so we'll make that a priority. And those of you on the on the council, will you remind me that we need to get a recommendation to the board early? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
Thank
please let the record show that Secretary Garcia has arrived. Thank you. Okay. As a point of privilege, and if there are no objections from the board, I'd like to ask that we move up the superintendent announcements and follow up at this point, and then we'll do the board announcement and follow up. Is that all right? No objections? Okay, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I have my announcements here.
I just lost my little page. Where do I have them? Thank you, Ms. Noble. So just quickly on the resolution, Enhancing Equity and Excellence, a Roadmap to Reinvention for the Santa Fe Public Schools. The president asked me just to keep this as a standing item on my updates. Actually, I had a wonderful conversation with the Partners in Ed group today, and I'm going back to them at the next meeting where they're going to give me input on the framework. My intent between now and probably the second week in February is to, and probably talk to all of you to get your input about the process, not about the solutions, but just the process that we're undertaking as I develop that framework. I wanted that to also be a collaborative process and not just me sitting in my office making it all up. We will be, taking that process, doing a qualitative analysis on the themes that came out, and then measuring that up against best practices. And then by the end of February, I will bring a recommendation to the board on the process, not on the solutions. I do want to say, though, that we can't wait for the, this entire process to see its end. If schools have ideas about how they might want to be pursuing certain themes and whatnot. We have 2 schools that are interested in various magnets. And so I'm entertaining those proposals. We'll bring those to the board like we would normally, because we just can't stop and wait until next year or the end of the summer or the spring to see what we do next. Secondly, I'd like to ask Zhang Hong to speak in regards to the National Board Certification, her experience on how valuable it was to her to become one of these certified teachers. The reason I asked her to talk 2 or 3 minutes about that, if you'd like to make your way up to the podium. For the last 2 years, you have graciously funded recruitment and retention. And with some of that money, we incentivized and paid for the teachers who applied, and they were selected by a group of various stakeholders in the district to be selected to get the certification. This, we believe, is a very strong retention effort, but it also results, I think, in stronger teachers. So would you please share with us, Ms. Young? Thank you.
Madam President, Dr. Garcia, and members of the board, thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Jong Young Hong, and I'm a music teacher on my 5th year of teaching at Ramirez Thomas Elementary School. I'm here to share my experience with the National Board Certification. Typically, students come to school to learn. At our school, Ramirez Thomas, students come to school to be safe. And through my National Board Certification process, I learned how to get to know them first as children, appreciate who they are, and build a relationship to let them know that they are safe with me before I could teach them. As a music teacher, I'm not as involved with the academic side, but through this process, I was asked to not only collect data in my own classroom, but also analyze my students' academic data across other contents. So I reached out for help from my school interventionists, like Jessica Lang, who showed me how to do this, and how I could do the same in my own classroom. Through collecting and sharing the data, I was able to have deep conversations with my students about what they were learning in my classroom and how I need to adjust my instruction to meet their needs. When I was studying at the university, I learned the theory of education, and I studied about the practical application of teaching. National Board Certification teaches me to reflect on that practice. I had to constantly ask the question, why? Why am I instructing this way? Why am I using this tool? And why is this the best way to get my objective across to students? This process has just transformed my teaching. And so now, I don't just see a class full of kids, but I see individual students and what they need individually to be successful in my classroom. Sorry. As a teacher, I was feeling very burned out in my craft, and I felt unsure if I really wanted to continue teaching. This process of becoming a National Board Certified teacher pushed me to analyze my teaching, and it showed me the teaching that was happening across my school. It felt like a refresh button that had been pushed, so a fire just reignited in me to continue teaching, to continue learning, and to continue supporting my kids. Santa Fe Public Schools has the second highest number of national board certified teachers in New Mexico. I think many of our teachers are capable of doing this, but we also need support to do this. This continuing funding is going to limit the number of incredible teachers that we have in the district from taking the chance to go through this process. I received the financial support from the district last year, and so I feel extremely grateful, and I feel more loyal to the district, and I want to stay here and help the students in the Santa Fe Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Your tax dollars at work. I also just want to share that we recognize the Nusenda Teacher of the Month. Nino Otero Community 8th grade teacher, Carrie Ramos, was the October recipient. I don't believe she's here, is she? No. But she received the gift card and the pictures, and it was on our website, and we thank Nusenda. We also partner with NEA to recognize the Santa Fe Educational Support Professional of the Month, and we recognized the educational assistant, Erica Alejo, as the October ESP of the month. And I'm sorry, she was recognized in November, and this was at Gonzalez Community School. So congratulations to both of them. I also want to comment on Project Put Students First. One of the most difficult, I think, and probably popular and unpopular decision I've made in the district. Well, I've probably made others, but this was very hard. It was something that I've wanted to do since last year, and we did it partly. We did move some reading specialists and a few other content specialists back into the schools. I think we placed the math content specialist last year. But it just really got to me in listening to teachers and listening to students that some had not had a certified math teacher for 2 years. Think about that if you were in middle school, what that would feel like, getting ready for high school and how scared you would be going to high school and have not had, feeling like you had solid preparation or have subs after subs after subs. And we have the cream of the crop in very essential jobs. They are making a difference. Every one of those people that we're looking at moving have an essential job, and I've told them over and over, they are valuable, they are not expendable. But we looked at our digital coaches, our interventionists, our curriculum coaches, our coordinators in the content areas, and all of them do amazing work. But our primary responsibility is to have teachers in the classroom for kids. And so everyone will be held safe, harmless, even for their salary. It will be for hopefully not the entire spring semester, because I'm going to tell you what we're doing in terms of recruitment, but they will be notified tomorrow. Well, they received an email tonight. We have a meeting with them tomorrow, another face-to-face meeting. They will start January 2nd. They're going to get 2 weeks of professional development and support, so we're just not throwing them in there. They're going to learn how to do Power School. They're going to be meeting with content specialists. Their principals have committed to support them. We will be providing them support. We had 5 volunteers, and I'm very grateful for those volunteers. We filled, I think, Ms. Wagner, 14 positions. So the remaining 9, some of them we're doing job shares, so that maybe we have 2 content specialists that will job share together, so then half the time they can still do part of their job. District personnel are going to have to pick up more. We contracted out in terms of special education, so we're looking at some creative solutions. But I've spoken to the Teach for America director for the state. I also know people at the national level, and talked to the union. They're not, blocking this in any way, to see if we can get some Teach for America teachers in Santa Fe this spring, but I told them I want at least 10 for next year, because we know we're going to have a shortage again, most likely, right? We have the radio ads ready to go in 6 states. And over the winter holiday, we will be calling retirees again to see if we can get somebody. It's my hope that we can get people back to their positions as quickly as possible. I know it is tough, but we're doing the right thing for kids. And that's really about putting kids first. It's not that we don't value our employees. We love our employees. And we're going to do everything we can to support them so that they can be successful. If this assignment goes through the spring, we also have 3 additional professional development days for them to support them. Supervisors of the schools will be also trying to provide more support, and whoever we have left at the district level in the content areas will also be supporting them. We do not want to put them in a position where they're going to fail. Even if they're not certified in that area that we're placing them, they are still the cream of the crop in terms of instruction and certified teachers. So we will be looking at being creative in how we deliver content and being able to support them. So that's our commitment to them, to move as quickly, to find other alternatives, and to support them so that they can be successful. But we owe our kids at least that much. We cannot allow this to have kids, languishing like that. We just can't do it. And so I hope that everybody hangs with us. I know that there's a risk that some people might get upset and leave, and that's certainly their prerogative, but I hope that they will know that our intent is not that we don't care about them, but we have to do what's right by our students.
Okay. Board Member Carrillo.
So on that, do you ever watch Fareed Zakaria on Sunday mornings? So it was either last Sunday or the one before, he had somebody on who'd written a book, and it was a mom whose children were at school in China. And, often I have a really hard time when we mention China, Singapore, and Finland, and all these countries that, let's face it, they're either socialist countries or whatever they are. They don't have free education for everybody all the way through. There's a lot of, challenges we face in the United States. But one of the things that she was stating is the ability of, one, their schools are funded, but the ability of administrators of those different directors in different areas to move staff around as is in the best interest of kids. And how that, not only the ability to move staff around, staff recognizes that they're doing what's in the best interest for kids, so there's never pushback about that. And then even if they're not doing it for a specific purpose like we are right now because of understaffing, that typically staff at different schools will be moved around at the most every 5 years. You're not going to hunker down at your school for 20 years and that's where you have your career, because that's what also creates a lack of equity in we call them districts, whatever it is. So, it's something, this could be maybe the start of something that's more progressive in our district that really ultimately ends up benefiting kids. And I think benefiting teachers as well, because you're with different populations and different kids and different peers, so everyone's constantly pushing everyone to be better, and you're learning from you're exposed to another worker, teacher, kid pool, which will inevitably, I think, hone your skills. Anyway, so, I'm really supportive of the idea. I know that some people push back on that, but I respect our district for putting kids first.
Okay, thank you. We're now on board announcement and follow-up. And actually surprisingly emotional here. We're going to honor our outgoing board members, and we have a few things to do here. And ultimately, I guess it's my privilege to speak first, and then we have a video, and then we have one more thing, and then we have cake. For real. So I guess I want to say truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you both for your service to the Santa Fe Public School. It's been an honor to serve with you, and personally I really appreciate all that I have learned from both of you. You've both been very generous with your time and wisdom to me, and I am really appreciative of that. Steve Carrillo, I don't know that we will ever have the passion and volume that you sometimes bring to items on the school board, and I'm going to miss that a great deal. We will have to work to have the awareness that you bring so easily to what's going on with athletics across the district. The calendar and some of these issues that you have been raising for a long, long time. The details, and personally, I think what I will miss most is the innovation, the unexpected thing that you bring, because I can sometimes guess that you'll bring the passion about the athletics or the calendar or some of these things that I've come to recognize, but there are always small things, or big things actually, that are innovative, and I will truly miss that. And I guess I would say I would encourage you to reach out to me or to Secretary Garcia or to Vice President Price or either of the new board members to keep bringing those forward, because we don't want to lose the wonderfully creative ideas that you bring. I'm guessing you're not going to stop reading the things you read and learning the things you learn. You are truly a continual learner, and I'm going to miss that. So thank you. And Maureen Cashman, I must say I'm a little bit afraid of doing a budget without you. The eye to detail on the finances and your ability to find solutions and come up with ideas in the 3 budgets I've done, I think it's 3, I think will be a real gap in our world. And I am guessing you will also continue to pay attention. The nuances you bring to every policy we amend, you catch things that are really valuable, and you know, I can tell you I will do my best. I will be way more careful when you're not here, because you bring so much of that detailed knowledge and really careful eye that I think has been incredibly important in the district. It has taught me what excellence can truly look like when you are being careful, detailed, and not taking anything for granted. And that is a lesson that I truly have taken to heart. So again, I would say you won't stop paying attention to what's going on with the schools. I'm absolutely confident of that. And I would encourage you to reach out to me or Secretary Garcia or Vice President Price or the new board members and continue to keep that up. And, you know, I really believe it takes a village, and I hope you, when you catch those things, won't let them go by, but will instead reach out to board members and make sure that we are being as careful as you've always been. So thank you for your service. Secretary Garcia.
Well, when you actually sit up here, it's a lot different than what people realize happens out there in the community. And as Board President Noble placed it, very excellent words for both of you. And I won't go into repeating all the other stuff except for a few minor stuff, but like I said, very excellent words that she reached out and to tell you guys how she felt, and that's exactly how I felt about both of you also. Board Member Carrillo, the passion that you have, amazing. And I would always say that every time somebody would say, well, the Steve guy, I say, the guy has passion for what he has total passion, and he maybe may go a little bit overboard, but he has passion. A little overboard, that's okay to do that. As in regards to Board Member Cashman, as Board President Noble said it, very detailed in the budget. And you and I sat on the Citizens Review Committee for what, 13 years? And some of the stuff that has been passed in the last 10, 13 years through the general public, all the teachers and everybody that votes in this community, because our schools have actually, our school system actually, I believe, proves that we're moving forward, and it takes a while. And you know, this is a nationwide thing that's happening. It's not just here in Santa Fe or Santa Fe Public Schools. It's a statewide thing. And with some of the items that you all have worked on in the past, great job. And we're certainly going to miss you. Anywhere from the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit and new buildings getting built, the general obligation bond, the tech bonds, and just working with this, having the passion for the students and the staff out there that work really, really hard to be an educator, because we all know, sitting up here, when I walked into a third grade classroom a while back, it was like, whoa, this is probably all you educators out there, and parents also, should actually commend these two up here because they've done a lot for this district, and congratulations. And we'll miss you. If you want to actually speak to myself, you're always welcome to call me. Thank you.
Board Member Cashman.
I'll say something at the end, but I just, since we're talking about Board Member Carrillo, you've been a good ally and also a good adversary. I think we get along. We don't always agree with every policy, but I can say that I know you're always tried to do what's best for the district. I think you will be a loss to the board because I think the board needs to have confrontation is not bad. I mean, I know a lot of people think it is, but it's not, because it makes people be more honest and look at things from a different perspective. And I think that will be a perspective that is going to be missed from the board. And I know how much time you put into your board work because we sit and we talk a lot about it. And so I think you will be sorely missed, but I think after you take a little bit of break, I think you'll come back and do something else for the community, or I hope you will. I don't know what it will be, but I think our kids and our school district have benefited from over almost 9 years of service, and I'm sorry to see you going from the board, from the bottom of my heart.
It's been an honor to serve. Just the greatest privilege of my life. I'm not kidding you. These almost 9 years, greatest privilege of my life. And the people I've met here and in the community. And I agree with Maureen completely. We love being in conflict with one another because we talk about things and we move forward and we come to agreement. And that's what all of us need to do, just not in our district, but culturally and Lord knows in our country, right? Come together even though we might have a lot of differences. But it is a privilege. People say sometimes it's a thankless job. It's like, no, it's not. I mean, Mary Ellen, you remember, people all the time probably came to you in the community and said, thank you so much for your service. And they thank you all the time. And it's just, it's a gift to us being able to serve, right? I think anyone in public service, okay? It's a gift to us being able to serve. And truly, one of the greatest pleasures of my life. And I don't know how I'll be involved in whatever. I don't know what's next. You know, what's next is focusing on my work, and at least for a little while. And, you know, and I'm always aware of what's going on, but I don't intend to be a gadfly or anything like that. The new board needs to do its work. This is what needs to happen in politics and legislatures and everything else. You know, you step down, you have a changing of the guard, and you move forward on what's next. And it's all good. And I wish all of you the very best, and you, Superintendent, the very best.
I'll chime in. To Maureen Cashman and Steve Carrillo, you two have been incredibly supportive since day one of both of us. It was incredibly awe-inspiring to have such a welcome when we first came on here. And I have no idea what it's going to be like to not be the newcomers anymore when we meet again in January. I want to thank you for answering our questions as well as causing us to ask more of them. From detail to just egging us on to get to what it is that really matters in the school district. You aren't just supportive of the students, but you're really supportive of the entire community, families all the way through. So thank you very much.
I would like to add on that I appreciate you very both. I do agree with 100% with Harvey. Just you guys welcoming us from the first day was just, it was just so nice just to feel like, again, just very welcomed. And then just asking the questions and making sure that we're on top of our schoolwork. And it's been a pleasure working with both of you. I'm going to miss you guys a lot.
Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I echo all of the comments of the board and the student board members. And I know people want to get to cake, and we have other meetings, the rest of the meeting to go through, so I'm not going to go on. But I'm going to highlight two things. So, Ms. Cashman, I remember when I came on and you and I spoke about those tennis courts. I don't think people get it. The tennis courts have been an issue since I was at the district the first time in 1995, and it continued on, and couldn't believe that they were still being repaired, and it was an issue, and it was complicated, and we talked about it, and I said, well, we worked together on this, we're going to make it, I promise you, we're going to get through it. But she is tenacious, and the students, the community is better for that, and unfortunately, you have to be deceased to have anything named after you. But if there was ever an exception, I would call those courts the Cashman courts. And we all just somewhat informally call them the Cashman courts, because I don't think that would have happened had it not been for your tenacity. You always do your homework. And I think we did some really good work together, and I really appreciate working with you, and I am going to miss you. Mr. Carrillo, one of the best days and the worst days of my life, but in the long run, it was good for the state of New Mexico, and that was the rally at the Roundhouse on the snow day. I did pay for it personally, but it was the best thing that we could have done, because it did, I think, affect a change at the legislature that day when they took that vote. And we didn't wind up, some people thought we were crying wolf and that the budget turned out. No, they actually made a vote that day. And if you didn't go to that, you have no idea. I think from what I hear from people, it's been the largest public demonstration ever at the Capitol building. And you pushed to make that happen. I know you wanted a whole day, but we got half a day and we accomplished what we needed. But I think that's, when I talk to people about, because I've been an advocate, I've never really been an activist, and you need people inside the system, moving a system. And I think you border on the activist more, and you're an advocate too, but you're also an activist. And you need people to push, right? And then you've got the people sort of moderates in the middle and the people within the system that move it. And activists can be difficult to deal with, right? Because they push the system in ways that are uncomfortable when you're within the system. And I think you are a very effective activist, and you're a very effective advocate for not only the students in your community, but all students, and get us to think about things in different ways. And so you both will be sorely missed. But I know that you will continue to contribute to our community in different ways. I just think it's in your DNA. So it's been my honor to work with you. Thank you.
And we have small tokens for you to remember us by. And I would just say, as we go to the video, to quote Ms. Nava in public forum, I think it was well said, everything you did in the best interest of the kids, and we know that. So thank you. So I think we're going to go down and take some pictures, but there's one more thing, because Board Member Cashman received an Outstanding Leadership Award from the New Mexico School Board Association this weekend. And what it says is, Maureen Cashman, the certificate acknowledges that the board member has successfully completed 36 cumulative hours of training for Level 2 of the Leadership Development Program set by the Board of Directors for the New Mexico School Boards Association. So even they recognize your exemplary service. Congratulations. And we'll take some pictures with a certificate and maybe your glass apples, and then have some cake and come back at, let's come back at 7:10. Thanks. So that means officially we're in recess. Okay. Oh. Can give a moment for the adoring fans. All right, calling the meeting back to order. We are now.
We're on board announcements.
Oh, we're on board announcements. Board Member Cashman, then Board Member Carrillo.
The first announcement, about a week and a half ago, PBS had a program called Unspoken, and I would advise anyone to take a look at that if you're interested in Native American issues. And it was about the boarding schools and the legacy that has left behind for our Native American community. And I think it would be definitely appropriate for at least middle school and above, when we're in our history classes, social studies classes, to watch that PBS documentary. It was, you know, I think I'm informed, but I found out how ill-informed I am on some of these Native American issues. And they had a part of that was talking about the Santa Fe Indian School here in Santa Fe. And so it really is something that I would, you know, and maybe we can even foster it as a school district during Native American Month, that at least our middle school and above classes see that, because when we talk about Yazzie Martinez and being culturally relevant, that definitely was culturally relevant. And when I talked with Senator Heinrich's education aide, he said, and it was almost like he said, I didn't see it, but when we started talking, he said, oh yeah, this is something that still resonates with our community. So something to look. And my second board announcement.
And PBS, you said, just because I'm putting it on my list of TV and movies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm sure they'll have it on again, and you know, we can probably buy some CDs, but Unspoken. And my second announcement is I would just like to say thank you to the voters in District 2 for giving me the opportunity to be your board member. I know we haven't always agreed on every issue, but I think we've always agreed that we want to put our students first and foremost. So I thank the voters of District 2. I thank my family because they see how much work goes in to be an effective board member. And I want to say thank you to the staff. It's been an honor to work with you, to our schools, and to our community at large. So wish the new board success. I would like to say and follow Board Member Carrillo's advice that I'm going to step away, but I probably won't. There are some issues that still, I think, in order to be to give all of our children an opportunity, I truly believe that every one of our kids can be successful, and we're just not there yet. So there will be some issues that I will be watching closely, and I may be coming in public forum and speaking with, but I do wish the new board success, and so thank you.
Board Member Carrillo.
So I would echo what Ms. Cashman said relative to staff. Amazing to work with. Just, and I don't use the A word awesome, but you're an awesome, I mean the A word often, but you're an awesome group of people to work with. And Mary Ellen and I were talking about our district. This is an exceptional district, and I know we have places to go and challenges to meet, but you know, when we look at the people that we're working with and what we've accomplished, and even in the last, 10 years, it's been remarkable. So it doesn't happen without great leadership and without great foot soldiers and people and directors getting all the work done. So thanks for that. Obviously, one of my announcements is going to be sports. So he touched on that Santa Fe won the tournament, the Capital Cities tournament. You've got to know that last year when Santa Fe won, it was the first time they'd won their own tournament in like 20 years, right? Last year was the first time they went to the pit for state in 41 years, and had they won it would have been 50. But one of the things that was really cool about Saturday night besides the fact that JB put a three-pointer in right before the buzzer to tie it up and go into overtime, I mean, the place was just, it was loud, it was exciting, and it was community. And the reason I say this is, more than any other time that night since I think I've been there were so many people who didn't have kids in Santa Fe Public Schools. They were there because it was an exciting athletic event in a small town, and they just wanted to see what it was all about. So I would just encourage people to continue to do that. Right now, Santa Fe is beating Rio Rancho, and
They're down 16-11.
Rio Rancho's down 16-11? We just went down? Híjole, for God's sakes, guys. But it's just super exciting. You know, support your athletics, support your arts and your theater. It's really important for a community to do that. And that's the only thing I have relative to board announcement this time. There you have it.
Okay, thank you very much. On to the consent agenda. Anything that needs to be considered separately? Board Member Carrillo.
Not separate, but just for comment, contracts.
Do you want to go ahead?
Sure.
Unless another
hold on.
board member has something to be
It's
considered separately.
9C. 9C. Okay. Contracts here. And just it's. I have no trouble with the contract at all because I know what we go through when it comes to bidding and things like that. But it's over $500,000 from the GEO bond going toward the design, programming, and schematic design and everything for ECO. So ECO is our early college opportunity program. It was born like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And, you know, I wish that people like Dana Richards and Tammy Harkin and I know Joel actually watches us from afar sometimes, but to see this all come to fruition, right? And also Mary Massey, all of these people that were instrumental in, and Lisa, all of these people that were instrumental in getting ECO started. It's been kind of in its real fledgling stage. And now with this, it's going to really take form. And so this is super exciting. I had said years ago, this would be the legacy of the board at that time, and Linda was on the board, and Susan, and you were on the CRC at that time, so involved, and so were you, Rudy. And so, but this is a huge piece of progress for Santa Fe Public Schools, and to see this contract here, I just wanted to pull it out for special recognition, and then as always, thanking voters. You know, without bond money, we have the best facilities in the state, bar none, and you just got to go around. I mean, maybe a little itty-bitty Rio Rancho with a Volcano Vista in Cleveland. Yeah, they're really nice. But, you know, they don't have 30 facilities. They don't have what we have. And this is a remarkable district in that way, and we just want to thank the voters for always supporting our facilities and our schools.
Just for a point of clarification and for the minutes, and we can always go back and watch the video. And I know that you didn't mean that it was half of the GEO bond allocation, or that it was 50.
No.
And at some point we caught
It's a little more than $500,000.
$500,000.
Of
yes.
110 million, was it last?
Correct. Yeah, we just want to make sure for the record.
Oh, yeah,
that
and it's been
everyone
over
knows.
years we're doing this. And, you know, we allotted 10 million in the last CRC. When I was still on there, we allotted 10 million for ECO to gradually be used in cross bonds as we build out that site. So this is super exciting.
So, Madam President, just on that note regarding ECO is on the first item that we have the contracts over $50,000. It looks like we roughly have $522,875. Is that for the architectural firm? I'm talking about the first, second, third, fourth, the fifth one down. On item number B.
Baker Architecture and Design for
That's what I was just
ECO?
reading of, yeah.
And it's really quick, if you look at the memorandum that's dated November 20th, if Claudia V. Hill Architects got a higher score than Barker Architecture, how come we chose Barker? If you look at.
Secretary Garcia, Board President Noble, Superintendent Garcia. To answer the first question, it is in fact Fort Baker Architectural Design who was selected after a considerable RFP process that went through 10 different architect firms who applied. Initially, the team who consisted of myself as the chair, an architect, one of our employees, Clifford Reis, a CRC representative, Lisa Randall, and Leo Prenovo, one of our construction project managers, went through those and came up with a short list that we elected to interview. I think it was on November 18th. And after the interview, you'll go ahead and see that the initial evaluation scores that are to the left, we added the score from the interviews, and the total scores on the far right, which left Baker Architectural Design Firm as number 1 in the selection.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. I was just reading the sheet wrong. Also, in regards to item B, what is the so the third one down is Allied Electric Incorporated, and so on the far right, they roughly have a contract for $820,000. 286. So is the 89 what we're just approving for them for this packet?
Secretary Garcia, President Noble, Superintendent Garcia, that is correct. As a large process to replace an aged primary power system that supplies power to the entire Santa Fe High campus, ECO and Chaparral, we entered into a contract with that group earlier in the year, and since then there was discovered that there was no feasible way to cross one of the bridges that goes from North Campus to South Campus, so additional construction was required to allow that to happen.
So the total contract for, excuse me, bringing conduit to Santa Fe High is 820.
Do you have that?
Yes, no, 820, 286.
That is correct.
I just want to comment on that, if I may, Madam President. So about 2 years ago, I don't think you were on the board yet, Mr. Garcia, Secretary Garcia, we had a major problem over the summer. I don't remember, we had summer school at Chaparral. That's when we had to try to find a gigantic generator to keep things going. And that was a fun summer, wasn't it, Mr. Romero? That's when he started calling me Superintendent Mother Teresa, because that wasn't very nice. But we had some major, major difficulty, and it could not be repaired. And they did a little patch job, but it is so, the way that it was done, right, and to be able to fix it, it's not really fixable. They patched it together to get us through, and we've been with our fingers crossed that we wouldn't have a major problem. So I think it's something that's somewhat extraordinary, because I think typically when you look at it, you wouldn't think it would be that expensive, but to put all of it together is quite complex, as I recall.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Recommend we approve consent.
I'll second the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Moving along to our action items. Action item A, the Academy for Technology and the Classics Charter Renewal. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. I believe we've presented to you before, and now we're at the last phase of this. As part of being authorizers last spring, we put together a group that began to look at just how things were operating in different sectors. And it's something that we will do annually in terms of our authorizer responsibilities. However, at this particular point in time, it is time for a charter renewal. And sometimes I think people forget that the word charter means it's really a contract. They're contract schools or charter schools. And the charter tells us what their contract, what they're saying they're going to do. So we had a multidisciplinary team that reviewed various focus areas. Ms. Rael is heading that group. And I'm going to turn it over to her. They will go over the different sections and end with the recommendation. Ms. Rael.
President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, we're going to take you through a PowerPoint presentation that will outline not only the summary of what took place, but a timeline. And you will also get to hear from other members of our staff that I'll introduce here in just a minute. So in summary, the role of the Santa Fe Public Schools as authorizer is to review the school's evidence of progress around the performance or rather the compacts around academic, organizational, and fiscal performance agreements. We did have a group of staff that did assist in this compliance and annual review, and I just want to say that the purpose for this visit was just to collect information at the school level and really focus on some roles that you find typically in any school. We had representation from the Curriculum and Instruction Department, Special Education, Bilingual Education, Facilities and Safety, and Budget and Finance. At this time, I'd like to introduce those folks who were part of that team so that you have some context for who they are, and they will be presenting here later this evening. For curriculum instruction, we have Ms. Dakota Goldberg. If you want to stand so they can see who you are. For special education, we have the Executive Director of Special Ed, Julie Lucero. We have our bilingual coach, Suzanne Hawkes-Gorman. Of course, our Executive Director of Operations, Mr. Gabriel Romero, and our Chief Financial Officer, Edmond Martinez. Going on through the timeline, this process did start back on March 26, 2019. And again, this begun by notifying the Academy for Technology and the Classics that a review would be taking place. And there are some stipulations through policy that we have to complete that within 30 days. So I was in touch with Principal Lumley. We provided guidance documents to the principal to begin this process and get it going. On April 20th, or 30th rather, a team from Santa Fe did go over to ATC. I was part of that team along with the members that I just introduced. And our purposes there, again, were to monitor adherence to the school's performance frameworks, to observe, document, and assess progress of ATC's implementation of those frameworks. What that looked like is we were doing document review, we were visiting classrooms, we had a whole team from facilities and maintenance come through and check various things. We also wanted to identify opportunities for improvement and next steps around student achievement. Now, we learned some really amazing things that you'll hear later in the presentation around that. On May 29th, we did provide ATC feedback, if you will, and those that feedback was in 3 categories. We isolated things that we thought they were meeting, and that was defined as a school is meeting program compliance requirements. We also identified highlights and things that we thought we wanted to shine for the school because they were shining in those areas. We also want to focus or provide focus areas, which meant that the school needed to continue to develop those things that we noted in the report. On June 17th, Principal Lumley at ATC did respond to Dr. Garcia within the 30 days, and it was something that she took performance, the frameworks by area and addressed those. She updated that here in the last couple of weeks. But already we knew, based on her communication to Superintendent Garcia, that she had already started to work on those areas that we deemed as focus areas. At this point of the presentation, we're going to have the team come up and present the next several slides that talk about highlights and notable actions towards addressing the focus areas so that you get a sense of some of the things that we saw when we were there and that we want to highlight for you this evening.
Good evening, Board President Noble, board members, Dr. Garcia. So I'll be reviewing the academic framework, and I have the privilege of going over the highlights. So we did notice high rigor and expectations for all students to learn grade level English language or arts standards, high level of student engagement evident across curriculum areas, relationship respect observed in every single classroom, use of smart board technology to teach biology, English language development courses, and qualitative data was analyzed for every student's related changes, and parent meetings are conducted twice a year.
Board President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia. I'm going to point out some of the things that, in addition to the outstanding instruction that we saw, many of the best practices that we always hope to see in our classes, high engagement. We also had a couple focus areas. One of those was around the area of multi-tiered system of supports, which is sort of a holistic way that we support struggling students. Since the time that we noted these, the school has gone ahead and we've seen evidence of enhanced efforts in the development of classroom intervention plans. That's what's being done in the classroom, the closest to the student, to help them be more successful. Also, there's increased documentation of school assistant team reports and 504 related documents. The school has also shifted, and they now have a dedicated time for ELD case management, similar to what you might see in a special education arena, and teacher collaboration. And finally, an innovative approach that they've taken on is the school is offering an ELD block for students in addition to their ELA instruction.
President Noble, Superintendent Garcia, board members, and cabinet. We'd like to add some additional focus areas include professional development continues to be provided for teachers in the following areas: monitoring English learners' English language proficiency, as well as differentiated instruction in all content areas, and also professional development specifically focused on how to use data to plan for modifications and instruction for English learners and/or IEP modifications and teacher lesson planning.
Board President Noble, Superintendent Garcia, board members. This assessment also included detailed analysis of the organizational framework, which included buildings, grounds, the processes involved in maintaining a school. And it also relied on a lot of documents and a lot of inspections from other departments like the Public Schools Facility Authority and also from our security department to come up with these. So it wasn't just myself, as a large team of people going through the schools to make these determinations. And we did determine that the school is well maintained and has systems to provide preventative service, which is very important to the longevity of the building itself. Also, a recent substantial renovation, the ATC gym, cafeteria, sand slabs that was discussed earlier by CRC member Reis. That went a long way to addressing a lot of the issues that the school was lacking. So those were highlights that we'd like to, bring forward of the school addressing those issues. Now, there were some noticeable actions towards addressing some focus areas. The safety audit indicated there was room for improvement. ATC, we're working hand in hand to try and guide them. The security department is bringing them up to date on some of the security protocols and equipment they need to respond to emergency situations. Our security department is doing a great job to help them with that. Also, the Public Schools Facility Authority issues a facility maintenance and assessment report. The last one was conducted in 2016, and really the only major issue, and I don't know why I call it a major issue, but the only issue that was mentioned that was needing attention had to do with drainage. And again, the renovation that was recently done there did a lot towards that with the new parking lot, new bus drop-off and pickup, new entryways, and those sorts of improvements. So that's gone a long way to improve some of the drainage issues on the site.
Good evening, Board President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Garcia. Two major thematic approaches were done in terms of the fiscal framework, focusing both on the short-term viability and the long-term sustainability of Academy for Technology and the Classics. And the major areas in terms of the 2017 to 2018 audit, there were about 13 findings that were reduced down to 7 findings. We have not been able to release the 2019 audit, but there have been significant improvements in the 2019 audit as well. And so in these specific areas that the financial framework focuses on is to making sure that there is proper stewardship over the finances, making sure that there's proper cash balance, making sure that there's proper reporting and compliance in those areas. And so with an operating budget for this year of about slightly over $3 million, they do sustain and have sustained over the past few years a healthy cash balance, well over the 5% range, well within the 20% range for the prior 3 fiscal years. And so as some budgets start to increase, you do start to see some of those cash balances get tapped for specific projects or specific improvements, but they've been able to maintain a healthy cash balance over the past 3 years. So that is a significant highlight for the charter school. Some of the areas to focus in terms of moving forward, knowing that there will always be findings in terms of potential areas for improvement within a system. So those are definitely areas that, through working with their Director of Finance, we've identified that they have proper systems in place. They've been able to implement some of those internal controls and been able to improve on some of those reporting errors through their internal controls. And so those areas will or have already been met. Some of their corrective action plans have already been met. And through the reporting, they've identified other areas that they are planning on improving as well.
President Noble, members of the board, and Superintendent Garcia, I just want to take a little bit of time to thank this team. It was truly a collaborative effort, and it was a real pleasure to work with everyone to work towards this renewal. Just to review, we looked at academics, we looked at the organizational framework and the financial framework. And ATC's Governing Council President has signed and agreed to the terms of the charter between the Santa Fe Public Schools and ATC. And at this time, the recommendation to the Santa Fe Public Schools Board of Education by Superintendent Dr. Garcia is to renew the charter contract for ATC for 5 years.
Thank you very much. And I want to also thank the staff team for some very thorough work and a very thorough presentation. Board Member Carrillo.
I know there's going to be discussion maybe, but motion to approve the renewal, the charter renewal for ATC.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, who wants to? Board Member Carrillo.
Come a long way in 9 years, huh? Pretty amazing. And Mr. Reis said earlier, one of the top high schools in the state. It's like the second top high school in the state and among the top 100 in the country. So, I mean, we have a lot of reasons to sing the praises of ATC as our charter. And no question that having the new facility adds to that. I ran into some parents who went to a basketball game the other night there, and they said just the pride of ownership and the pride of being in their school and seeing their logo in the middle of the basketball's wood floor. There is such a tremendous sense of pride in that. And so having that facility, and again, thanks to voters and stuff, but I mean, it really is special. I was there when they did I can't remember who else was there, but it's an amazing new facility. So, and you do a great job there. And not only can we learn from what you're doing there, but others in the state can learn from what you're doing right over there and inspiring your kids. So enthusiastically support this school.
Board Member Cashman.
So I do have some questions, and some of them are to look forward, okay? One of the purposes of a charter school is to do innovative things and then apply them back to our regular schools. I haven't seen that happen, that ATC hasn't come to us and said, this is what we're doing and this is how we think it could be applied to Santa Fe Public Schools. So I think in the future that has to happen a little bit more, because otherwise then the other side is, what benefit do we get authorizing a charter school? And I'm concerned about that because we have other charters that have looked to come back to the district. So we need to have some standards, and if it's not that we are learning from something like from them, then what is the advantage? So that's just a comment, not to ask you, but something to go forward, because I am concerned. A charter, if it's a one-way benefit, I mean, I know it benefits our kids, but if it's one way where the charter gets to use the bond money, then it's got to be back and forth. It can't be one-sided. It can't be taking, and I know it's a lottery program and everything, but people that apply to a lottery program also are focused on the education of their kids, and we need to figure this out. The other thing that I would like to say to ATC, and I hope they take it, it concerns me when we're using the bond money for the taxpayers that we may not, when we use our bond money, one of the first things in our bond was safety and security of our students. It wasn't a new gym, it wasn't things, and I get that, but I think, I am concerned. We've gone through and put in rhino locks in all of our classrooms. ATC is an isolated area out there. It's going to take our law enforcement and our sheriffs a little bit more time to get there. I would like them to be maybe advocating to their legislatures or using part of mill levy, to bring that school up to what we wouldn't allow that for our kids. And because of the climate has changed, I think we need to be asking them to step up on their security. Sometimes nobody wants to put in the rhino locks. I mean, that's not sexy. It's not, nobody sees the benefit until something really happens. And then everybody says, thank God I had that to buy the police a little bit of time. And nowadays, you can't say school shooting is not happening here. School shooting is happening everywhere. It's a fact of life, maybe one we don't like. But so I would like, as if we're going to authorize ATC, I would like us as a district also to be saying we need to, the limited funds that you get, you're going to have to apply some of those to safety and security concerns and work with our safety and security, because when we went ahead and we did rhino locks, we didn't ask the superintendent as, well, is this optional? We said, we want that. We need that to happen figure out how we're going to do with our budget. So I think we need to also be asking the same if we're authorizing a charter, because those kids also need to be safe and secure nowadays. So those are my comments on this.
Board Member Carrillo.
So on that point, I would remind the board that the decision to allocate funds for the addition of the gym, science labs, music, and cafeteria and everything, that preceded that preceded Parkland. Okay, Parkland changed everything in this district and throughout the country. So all of those decisions to allocate the money for that project preceded Parkland by about 2 years. And so I want to remind us of that, because everything takes a lot of time. And then I would say it's our responsibility as a board through the CRC to make sure that the funds are allocated for Rhino Locks, because that's how we pay for all this stuff. Hold on a second, I'm not done. And so I would say whoever's going to be serving on CRC, that now needs to be a priority, because they certainly can't take it from operational no more than we would ever expect any of our campuses to take security from operational. So, I mean, I don't see why that can't be done. I'm sure they'd be a partner in getting it done with our facilities and security people. And regardless, the money's there. I mean, it is. You move around, move the money in the budget on the CRC and elsewhere. Things sometimes are moved around like checkers on a checkerboard, and you find out a way to get to the place where you're going to king me or whatever. And those are your priorities, right? Same thing here. I agree with you completely. Needs to be a priority, and then the CRC needs to make it a priority. Come to us with the contract that might be 50 or more to approve.
Board Member Cashman, then Student Board Member McGinnis.
I believe that the Rhino Locks were not taken out of the CRC GEO bond budget. They were taken out of either SB 9 or HB 33. And they get their own HB 33 and SB 9. We did not take it out of the GEO bond. So I'm saying is ATC needs to prioritize some of those and not assume that it's coming out of GEO bond. We didn't do that. And it hurt us. I mean, because we have other, just like they have priorities, but we made a commitment that we would do, so we could look this community in the eye if something happened to our kids, that we did everything humanly possible to keep our students and our staff safe. And so I think, you know, so we gave up other things that we might have liked to have done as a district. And I'm just saying, I think, you know, that has to be a discussion with ATC going forward, because I am very concerned that as long as we're authorizing them as a charter, that they should be living up to some of the standards that we're setting for our own schools, and not everything is out of GEO bond.
I have an idea. I'm sorry.
Hang on. Board Member, Student Board Member McGinnis has raised his hands a couple times.
So, the Rhino Lock issue primarily, that was addressed under the safety audit. I'm trying to understand what part of the focus this contention is part of.
Madam President, you want us to answer? So, Mr. Romero, are you going to answer that part since you were on the facilities side?
Sure. Student board members and board members, superintendent. It was addressed under the organizational framework, which is a large encompassing about the facility and its structure.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking about how it is that that became addressed is the safety audit, as I understand, is primarily aimed at working with trespassers with regards to what's improvements. I mean, the school since dedicated funding to install traffic arms to prevent trespassers. Since it's already been discussed as to where that where the funding for Rhino Locks would possibly come from, where did the funding for that traffic arm come from? Was that under one of the HB, or was that under one of the bills, or was that under one of the was that under the funding that flowed through the school district?
Student board members, president, And Superintendent, that came from capital outlay, a special allocation from the legislature. One moment.
Would you like to address it?
Madam President, board members, Superintendent Garcia, to answer your question, which is a very good question, it did come from a special allocation. We asked the Santa Fe delegation for we asked them for $500,000 for safety and security money. This last legislative session, they allocated $100,000 to ATC. We will be going to them once again this legislative session to ask for more money for safety and security. And so they're not merely arms, they are actual gates that you have to buzz in to get into the campus. So that we can control who comes in and out during school hours. Of course, they'll be open on drop-off and pickup. But during the regular school day, you'll have to buzz in to get into the school. We also, another issue was a pathway to the street because students were having to walk with traffic to get to the bus stop, the city bus stop, and we put in a pathway to the street that allows them to get there. So those were the two major safety issues that we addressed this year, and we'll continue to address safety issues as money becomes available. It's not a real simple issue, and I think Gabe can talk to you a little bit more about this. The doors to our classrooms are glass, and rhino wire will not work. It's a simple installation will not work. So it will involve changing every single door to every single classroom. So it's a little more of an expense than what you might find in a class in a school that's indoors.
Thank you.
Board Member Carrillo, did you have an idea?
Well, I had an idea, and it was just basically because to address Ms. Cashman's concern that you know that she voted in favor of the renewal, and maybe if she desired to have an amendment basically saying maybe, what is this, December? Then maybe by the end of April, someone from ATC addresses the board in terms of how they're planning on addressing future security concerns.
I'm not saying I'm not going to vote for the renewal. I'm saying going forward, I think the next board needs to look at, I mean, because they're, you know, I mean, I think ATC has been a good partner with us. I remember when it was over at the Chavez Center in that trailer over there, and a lot has changed and it's improved. But what I'm saying is we need to have consistent policies dealing with charters because there may be other charters that come to us, and so what is our policy? And we can't just say, well, we really like the principal there and they're doing a great job. But we don't really know you, and you know, it's just got to be consistent. But I think also the board needs to have a serious discussion for future. What is the advantage of having a charter with us? I mean, right now ATC is our charter, and so I think we need to go forward with it. But I think we do need to talk about in the future, do we as a school district, is there any advantage to having a charter with us? And I'm sure that the superintendent will be talking with Principal Lumley about my concerns on security, but I just want us to move forward and make that a little bit more of a priority. And I know it's hard. I understand you have other needs there too, but I think we need to all be on the same, since you're under Santa Fe Public Schools, we need to all be on the same when we have to have a community response to hopefully a tragedy that will never happen here. But we can't just say we didn't address it.
Board Member Carrillo.
So I'd like to amend my motion to say that at the a time, is like the end of April good? Just to come back to us with some sort of security plan and how it might be funded. And it doesn't mean that it will be, but just to have some sort of updated plan to present to the next board around, updating the security of the facility. Is end of April reasonable? Because you all are really busy too. By the end of April. That would be my amendment to my motion.
Is it
And I
friendly?
second my amendment. No, I'm just going.
Is it friendly to the second?
Yes.
On the advantage thing, and I would encourage board members to ask Principal Lumley to spend some time at the school and observe what goes on in their classrooms. Because I met a gentleman, Jesse was Joaquin, and the way what? I'm not going to talk about any kids. I know better. So all these kids, Jane, no. So the way Joaquin was teaching his coursework, and then Joaquin and Miss Lumley, they took me out to this area. They were building small adobes. It was so creative, so innovative, and so experiential. Getting your hands dirty, being out there working with the mud and making small adobe bricks and everything. To me, that's one example of what happens at that school, and that can be integrated into other things that we're doing in terms of like the advantage and what they bring to the district. It's not necessarily, I think, is incumbent upon them to tell us, hey, you could learn this, this, and this. It's incumbent also upon us to go out there and say, holy smokes. I mean, the way they're doing this is really making this relevant for kids. They're all sitting up in their chair in a classroom when they're talking about some classic English literature or whatever it might be. So, I mean, that's what I think they bring, is a style of teaching.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And an amended motion and a second. So the motion is to approve the charter and to ask that ATC come back by the end of April to report to the board on specifically the issues regarding safety. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks again to the Santa Fe Public Schools staff, and thank you to everyone from ATC for working with us and providing so much information.
And Madam Chair, I think it goes both ways, that, we provide safety and security. Mr. Salvidres is on call to them as part of the charter, where they get that sort of support. And I think it can go both ways. And I asked Ms. Lumley, and she said she's going to get me that data. What % of her population come from the Santa Fe Public Schools in terms of students? I would venture that it's probably about half. That's just my guess, but let's look at the data and see. I do, and there's always, I think, and you guys always honor our teachers too, but I have to say that we don't have just one school and where you can control and really guide. Smaller, it's easier, right? If you went to Mandela and you look at what's happening at Mandela, it's amazing. But we have those kinds of teachers throughout the district. It's just that the entire district isn't all moving in that same direction. But I just have to say, for people out there that are listening, that there's experiential learning, there's project-based learning. There are amazing, amazing things happening in the Santa Fe Public Schools as well. And that doesn't mean it's not happening at ATC, and we're very happy to partner, and maybe we have some teacher exchanges, because you guys might learn some stuff from us too. There's are amazing things happening, and whether they're authorized by the district or not, the whole idea of of charters is that they're also, with that flexibility, they're supposed to be performing higher and get better outcomes. That is part of the whole charter promise, and there's many that are not. They're doing just about the same, and the idea is that they should be excelling, which your school is, but they're supposed to share the best practices throughout the state, and somehow that mechanism, Ms. Cashman, has never seemed to happen statewide at all with the charters, or holding them to a higher standard.
And I think it needs to, because we all feel that our kids can also perform and succeed, and I know many amazing teachers. So somehow we've got to, tackle that issue and be accountable, because, you know, the taxpayer money is going to them just as it is to us. And, you know, so that's all. But, you know, obviously, security and safety has always been an issue since I joined the board. And so I just want to make sure that all of our kids are in a safe and secure environment, then they can learn.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. Moving on to the second reading and approval of amended policy 331, prohibition and prevention of bullying, harassment, and hazing. It is proposed that board policy 342, cyberbullying prevention, should be repealed as the amended policy 331 accounts for cyberbullying. So you'll need to advise us whether we take one or two actions here.
I think it, Mr. Granada, I think it's just one action, correct? It's one item. Because I believe we're just amending policy 331.
Board President Noble, board members, Dr. Garcia. I think procedurally it would be best if it was a repeal of policy 331, if I have it correct. 342, and then passing the amended policy before you.
So you don't want to do it just as one motion?
Well, either way.
To repeal and amend and
Yeah,
replace?
it's just a small, minor procedural technicality.
Board Member Carrillo.
For discussion, I would then move that we repeal the old policy 331 and pass the second reading with this, which is policy 342.
It's the opposite. So we need to pass policy 331 and repeal policy 342.
Oh, got it. Sorry. Repeal 342, pass 331. Done.
Okay. I'll second.
So I have a question.
Yes, Board Member
Given all
Carrillo.
the discussion that we had last time, I'm noticing that the only thing in red, well, first off, thank you for putting the numbers, the line numbers. The only change, it seems, is the word school on page 5, and that would be in line 154. I don't really see any, I thought there were other changes that we had proposed.
Board President Noble and Member Carrillo and Superintendent Garcia, members of the board. There were other comments and things to note, and all of those would be taken into consideration for the administrative regulation that's currently under draft, so all those were taken. And you are correct, the only actual change to 331 was that the one place that was oversight with the word school has been added in.
Got it. Thank you.
Board Member Cashman.
On page 8 of 8, line 260, it says Board Policy 330. Is that correct? And what is Board Policy 330? Because we're talking about 331.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, Board Policy 330 is our discrimination policy.
Okay.
It was listed in our original existing policy as a reference point.
Okay.
And so it was continued as a reference point for a semi-related policy.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Board discussion and possible action. Item A, Board Policy 204, Superintendent examining and/or updating this policy as it relates to the superintendent's evaluation, contract, execution dates, and the use of performance data. Board Member Carrillo.
The first thing I'd like to state is that Dr. Garcia and I spoke about this last week, and I assured her this has nothing to do with Dr. Garcia is our superintendent for Santa Fe Public Schools. This is about procedurally where I think something is just wrong in the way that we do things as a district and the way PED does things in this state. When you look at Board Policy 204, I didn't see it in the book as a reference, but when you go to look at Policy 204, Basically, it just says you hire a superintendent, you do an evaluation, and you give her a contract. I mean, it's that vague, the actual way the policy is written. And I know I brought this up before, and I think the board needs to take this under consideration and then also press the PED to do the same thing. The way we get our information around how the district is doing, we typically don't get until it's too late. That's been the case as long as I can remember, right? You're getting park scores in August and the next semester year has already started. It makes a lot more sense as any company in the private sector, anybody working in an NGO, an executive director, or in the public sector, any director of these areas would, in all likelihood, and I would say probably almost 100% of the time, not renew a contract or do the evaluation until you had some more data. So I just think the next board really needs to look at, and it's timing, and I don't know how you're gonna work all this out. I don't have the answer right this minute. But it means maybe changing the cycle in terms of how it's done so that you get the information in terms of performance of the district, then you do the evaluation, then you offer a renewal or not, or an extension or not. That would, that's a standard business practice. I mean, when I say standard, I mean, talk to anybody, whether they're managing a restaurant and want to rehire a manager or a sales director at a hotel. This is the way outside of public education that business is done. And so I would just, like the board to look at that. It just would seem to make sense. That's all. That's why that's there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think we do actually need to really understand our schedule as a board, partly because things are changing.
And on the evaluation thing, that's a template from PED.
Yep.
And we even talked about that at one point, and even working with the superintendent about how do we make an evaluation a much more useful tool, right? Yeah. There you go. That's why that's there.
Okay. Looking towards the future.
Yes.
A few of my ideas for the upcoming years. I won't go through all of them. Well, I can.
No, you don't need to.
Okay.
First thing I want to say is that the comment that was made during public forum about at-risk, that really hit a nerve around the importance of language. And I know that there are certain things that are the way they are, and they've been that way forever. So no one even looks at changing things, bless you. But maybe it's something that the new board can consider, and even if we just change our own language as an example for the rest of the state. I know that years ago when I was negotiating union contracts, the use of the word employee versus the use of the word worker. And in a lot of unions that I worked with back east, they used the word worker because employee comes from the verb employer, which is to use. And so you change the language so there's dignity in the word. And so anyway, I just thought, I thank the gentleman very much for bringing that up, and I just think the board should look at it. Okay, first, vaping. Just because I'm not on the board doesn't mean this should fall off the table. I mean, I would have somebody, and perhaps I would suggest you, President Noble, meet with Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales, not Howie Morales. Yeah, sometimes one time I called him Howie Mandel. So Howie Morales, and to make sure that this is on their agenda, because they said it would be. And now there's people all over the country that are talking about banning vaping entirely. And I think, heck, take it to that level, because we're about protecting kids, right? I just don't want this to fall off the radar, because we are the ones that led the state in putting this, in getting this on the radar last May. So that's the first thing. Second thing that's listed there is ATC track and field. I would say that is the finishing piece that needs to be done to that school. And I would just encourage the next board in the CRC to consider finishing, if you will, that school. Because right now they take bus rides to the Santa Fe Indian School just to practice track. And this way people could then come to ATC for meets, the same way now they're coming for basketball. So I would just ask that that be something that's considered. Mr. Reese, I'm glad you're still here because you're on the CRC and very much part of the ATC community. The next thing that's there is arts embedded curriculum. In the same way, and I just applaud your efforts, Ms. Noble, around computer sciences. even computer people can use the artistic part of their brain, right? They need to, right? So, I mean, I would just say let's not abandon the idea of arts-embedded education. It works. You're meeting kids where they are, where they're passionate, and then everything else comes from there. They'll learn math and science and history and everything, you know, by maybe writing their own play or doing whatever it is they do, right? So that's why that's there. When I was campaigning, somebody brought up the idea of school advisory board. Now, as it's the same thing as the SAC, right? We all have to have SACs. But their idea was just by changing it from a SAC, it has to keep that name because that's a state thing. But internally as a district, letting them know that they're the school advisory board and that twice a year they're going to report to our board. Really giving people, because I know we don't have nearly the participation we should have on SACs, because a lot of parents and different people think that it's another committee. But if they felt like they were going to then present to our board, it just, I think, and I agreed with him completely in giving them the idea, much more relevance. And I just thought that was a great idea from a constituent. So I wanted to bring that to you. Another constituent, and this was all around sciences, and sciences it relates to new technologies and Wi-Fi and all that stuff. And what came out of my conversation with her was, let's establish a Santa Fe Public Schools speaker series, where maybe it's like the first Thursday of every month, someone comes here and it's a lecture and about something very relevant to our community and especially to kids. And what she and I talked about for probably well over 45 minutes on a day when I should have been knocking on many more doors, obviously, we were talking about, and she's written like 5 books. I mean, it was amazing what I learned from her. What happens to a child's brain when they're connected to their phone? Like literally, it's like giving them heroin. And then when you try to take the phone away. And when it's age appropriate, all these different things that happen physiologically to children around devices. And I mean, I think that would be an example of having a couple people come and really lecture about really the dangers of that and the importance of limiting screen time. And we all know that people like Bill Gates and all these people that have children, they limit the screen time for their kids. I mean, all of these different people in Techville do that. And there's a reason that they do, because it's like giving your kid heroin. And they just zone out everything. Anyway, so a Santa Fe speaker series. And Maureen and I would attend, right, Maureen? Yeah, because I want to, you're staying up on things that are going on in the education community and just in general, just at large. Somebody else, business mentorship program. And I know that we try to do this, but I also know that from a conference, a national conference 2 years ago, and I kept all my books, so I could let you know, President Noble, what district did this and how it's working, where the kids left during the school day to essentially intern with a certain business. And obviously culinary kids could go to, maybe they're apprenticing with a chef at Hotel Loretto or whatever, but really having our district be much more aggressive with business mentorships, much more than we've been. Because as we know, and as you met with Bill Beauchamp, that Beauchamp's, mentorship works. We know it does. Big Brothers works. We know it does when kids have someone to look up to and learn from. The next thing here is, see, we're just whizzing right through this, right? The volume and okay, athletic stadium sponsors. Let's go after some big money and naming rights on our gyms and our fields. Why not? This can be at the middle school. These are beautiful facilities and fields. And there's no reason why, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Coca-Cola, right? I'm sure they'd be the first one in line to jump in. But maybe it's, and it doesn't, Newsend is so generous, but maybe it's a tech company, right? Maybe it's the labs. Maybe it's Santa Fe Institute. I don't know. But it's, let's go after that. That's low-hanging fruit to put money into athletics. I want us to really stay vigilant about our plans for rezoning. When I was doing this, I judged the spelling bee at Chaparral and then the county bee. And so when I was at Chaparral this time, I was astounded that their student body count is down to like 270 or something. When I started on the board almost 9 years ago, it was over 500. There's a lot of room at a lot of these schools. And now granted, they probably had portables then. I mean, I'm trying to recollect the best I can. Are you texting Christy to see if that's... But I just remember it was a lot more crowded out there. And there are seats. And I know, President Noble, and I'm confident that you will be creative in helping solve this whole distribution of kids stuff as opposed to building new schools. So I just really want us to stay vigilant about that. And on the last thing, I decided, you know what, why throw a bunch of fuel into a fire that doesn't need to be there, so I'm not even gonna bring that one up. There you have it.
Thank you very much. That was
Oh, there's one more thing I saw to do.
quite a
Yeah.
list.
Well, the last thing is I would like the superintendent to continue working with Rabbi about the way we teach European studies, European history and World War II. Because the way we right now, the way we approach especially the Holocaust, everything related to the Holocaust and the preceding anti-Semitism beginning at the turn of the last century, 2 centuries ago, that's left out. The Holocaust is treated as more of an event and not a pivotal part of human history. But I would like, please continue that dialogue with Rabbi and the work you did when they came, when the sync came. I mean, that was so valuable. And I would just hope that that doesn't, just because I'm not here, that that doesn't fall by the wayside. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other items for board discussion to bring up? On to advanced planning. This is our last meeting of the year, our last meeting with these 2 board members. We will be back January 7th with a new board and a swearing in and other things. Anything on that? Board Member Cashman.
So in your swearing in, you probably need to reach out to the new board members to see if they're bringing a judge or they're planning for the district to. And if one of them is bringing a judge, then maybe the other one can just be sworn in, so you only use.
We've contacted them.
All right. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.